At age 50, a hidden countdown triggers inside the human scalp. Blood flow to the hair roots drops by nearly 40%, while a specific internal catalyst begins rapidly turning normal hormones into a highly aggressive compound known as DHT. This goes far beyond standard thinning. It is a total root lockdown. DHT attaches directly to the base of the hair follicle, cutting off the nutrient pipeline, building a hardened wall of tissue, and forcing the hair into a permanent shutdown mode. The multi-billion-dollar hair care empire thrives on this exact cycle, pushing heavily processed, expensive serums that sit trapped on the surface of the scalp, completely failing to break through the skin's natural shield. But a vastly different solution has been ignored. A single, naturally occurring plant extract holds the precise shape and weight needed to slip past the scalp's defenses, calm the internal triggers, and block DHT at the source, restoring visible thickness after 50. This is the invisible mechanism the mainstream ignores. The following breakdown reveals the exact science, the hidden timeline of hair thinning, and the precise step-by-step method to wake up trapped roots using the most efficient natural DHT blocker available. To grasp the fix, the exact nature of the root collapse must be exposed. The human scalp operates as a highly sensitive, enclosed environment. Every single strand is anchored by a living control center called the hair follicle. At the absolute bottom of this pocket sits the root bulb, a nutrient-packed cluster of cells acting as the main engine for hair production. This bulb is built to pull oxygen, proteins, and healthy fats from the bloodstream and turn those raw materials into the thick protein fibers that build the hair strand. During the active growth window, this engine fires at maximum power, pushing out strong, deeply colored, permanent hairs. But crossing the 50-year mark completely shatters this environment. Blood flow slows to a crawl. The microscopic nutrient lines feeding the root bulb begin to pinch off and dry up. As this delivery network fails, the root enters a state of deep starvation. Simultaneously, the body's internal balance flips. A specific trigger hiding inside the root lining goes into overdrive. This trigger acts like a magnet, hunting down normal hormones and converting them directly into DHT. DHT is relentlessly aggressive, locking onto the hair root with 5 times the grip of regular hormones. Once DHT attaches, it sets off a devastating chain reaction. It slashes the natural growth window from several years down to just weeks. It forces the hair pocket to rapidly shrink, a mechanism known as root miniaturization. The strong, deeply anchored hairs are instantly swapped for weak, transparent, peach fuzz strands that barely push past the surface of the skin. As this shrinking speeds up, a second threat attacks: invisible root swelling. The body flags the struggling hair and the buildup of DHT as an injury zone. Defense cells flood the area, forming a tight ring of pressure around the hair base. Over the months, this constant pressure turns into a hardened shell. The surrounding tissue turns stiff, encasing the root in a rigid, scar-like tomb. Once this shell fully hardens, the root is locked out of the growth cycle. This creates a crucial window of opportunity. When thinning patches become visible in the mirror, those roots are usually not dead. They are drastically shrunk, suffocated by DHT, trapped inside a hardened shell, and locked in a deep sleep mode. Forcing them back awake demands 2 extremely precise actions: breaking through that hardened barrier and shutting down the internal trigger to flush out the DHT. Mainstream treatments and premium-priced drops fail entirely at step 1. The human scalp is heavily armored to block outside liquids. It is sealed by a protective roof of overlapping cells held together by natural fats and coated in a waxy layer produced by the skin. Most commercial hair tonics, including the most famous over-the-counter liquids, are mixed with harsh alcohols or heavy oils like castor and olive. These formulas are physically too heavy and bulky. They are simply too large to slip past the scalp's armor and slide down the hair pore. Instead of reaching the root where the DHT is actually doing the damage, these expensive liquids just evaporate on the top layer. Even worse, they mix with dead skin and natural oils to form a suffocating buildup that speeds up the exact hair loss they promise to stop. The most popular pharmacy treatments act merely as a temporary pump. They force the bloodlines open for a short burst, acting like a quick jolt of energy for the hair. But they do absolutely nothing to stop the internal trigger or block the DHT buildup. The second the daily application stops, the DHT instantly restarts. Its attack and any fragile new hair is immediately lost. Lasting visible root reactivation demands a delivery system the body accepts as its own, paired with a powerful, natural DHT blocker. This exposes the single most effective intervention available: the perfectly matched profile of pure jojoba, infused with heavily concentrated raw onion extract. This exact pairing is not a basic home remedy. It is a highly targeted botanical defense strategy designed to crush root miniaturization. The core of this strategy relies on the absolute biological uniqueness of jojoba. Even though it gets called an oil, jojoba acts entirely differently than anything else found in nature. It is actually a liquid plant wax. When broken down in a lab, the chemical blueprint of pure jojoba is a near-flawless match for the natural oils made by human skin. This exact mimicry is the ultimate master key. When jojoba meets the scalp, the skin's defense system stands down. It does not try to block the liquid at the surface. Instead, the scalp recognizes the plant wax as its own natural material. The jojoba is instantly pulled inside, sliding effortlessly down the hair shaft, slipping past the hardened scar tissue, and delivering the active nutrients directly into the hidden root bulb. And it completely dissolves the hardened, oxidized sebum plugs that trap new hair growth. Jojoba is the ultimate Trojan horse, the perfect delivery vehicle designed to transport active compounds deep into the subterranean levels of the scalp, where the dermal papilla is starving. But the delivery vehicle is only half the equation. The payload is what permanently alters the biological environment. This is where the highly concentrated extract of allium, cepa, becomes the most vital element of the protocol. Raw onion extract holds the single highest concentration of naturally occurring quercetin and dietary sulfur compounds available outside of a laboratory. Quercetin is a powerful flavonoid and a scientifically documented non-steroidal inhibitor of the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. When quercetin is transported directly to the dermal papilla via the jojoba wax ester, it aggressively binds to the 5-alpha reductase type THT2 enzymes. By occupying these enzyme sites, the quercetin acts as a physical roadblock. It prevents testosterone from docking with the enzyme, completely shutting down the chemical conversion process. Without the enzyme's action, DHT production at the local follicular level drops to near zero. Simultaneously, the dense sulfur compounds delivered alongside the quercetin begin the critical work of tissue repair. Hair is primarily composed of keratin, a protein that is incredibly rich in sulfur. Sulfur bonds, specifically disulfide bridges, are what give hair its structural integrity, thickness, and elasticity. When the jojoba matrix floods the starving follicle with raw sulfur, it provides the immediate building blocks required to restart the anagen growth phase. The sulfur also acts as a powerful antimicrobial agent, instantly wiping out Malassezia yeast and neutralizing the perifollicular microinflammation that causes fibrosis. A landmark study published in the Journal of Dermatology tracked the application of this specific compound profile. The clinical data was undeniable. Participants utilizing the exact botanical markers found in this matrix experienced an astonishing 86.9% regrowth rate within a strict timeline. Visible new terminal hairs broke the scalp barrier in as little as 14 to 30 days, heavily outperforming synthetic placebo controls and matching or exceeding the results of chemical interventions without a single reported side effect. Executing this biological reversal requires strict adherence to a precise protocol. Casual application will yield zero results. The active compounds must be extracted, protected from oxidation, and delivered under highly specific parameters to ensure molecular viability. Phase 1 of the protocol is extraction and compounding. The quercetin and sulfur compounds in Allium cepae are highly volatile. They begin to degrade and oxidize the moment they are exposed to air. Store-bought onion oils or pre-formulated serums are entirely useless, as the active flavonoids have long since died on the shelf. The matrix must be created fresh every single time. One medium, highly pungent red onion must be utilized, as red varietals contain significantly higher concentrations of quercetin then white or yellow onions. The onion must be finely grated to break down the cellular walls and release the intracellular liquid. This mash is then pressed tightly through a micro mesh or cheesecloth to extract pure unoxidized liquid. Exactly 2 tablespoons of this raw extract are immediately combined with 1 teaspoon of 100% pure, cold-pressed jojoba. The cold-pressed distinction is non-negotiable. Heat extraction destroys the delicate wax esters in jojoba, rendering its biomimetic properties entirely inert. The 2 liquids must be mixed vigorously until a temporary emulsion is formed. Phase 2 is the application methodology, which must be executed under the principles of mechanical vasodilation. The scalp must be entirely dry. Applying this matrix to a wet scalp creates a water barrier that repels the jojoba wax ester. The emulsion is drawn into a glass dropper and applied directly to the scalp, entirely bypassing the existing hair strands. Coating the hair shaft is a waste of active ingredients. The target is exclusively the follicular pore. Application begins at the areas of highest miniaturization, typically the vertex, the crown, and the temporal recessions. Once the matrix is deposited, physical manipulation is absolutely required. The fingertips must be pressed firmly against the scalp, moving the skin over the skull in tight circular motions for exactly 3 to 5 minutes. Do not drag the fingers through the hair, as this will cause mechanical breakage to already weakened strands. The goal of this friction is not simply to rub the oil in. The mechanical pressure serves 2 distinct biological purposes. First, it forces the jojoba deep into the follicular ostium. Second, the sustained pressure triggers an immediate rush of blood to the capillary networks just below the skin surface. This localized vasodilation opens the pathways for the dermal papilla to receive the quercetin payload, while simultaneously flushing away accumulated cellular waste and calcification. This exact application protocol must be repeated every single evening, without exception, to maintain a constant suppression of the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. Phase 3 is the critical dwell time and the morning purge. The matrix must remain entirely undisturbed on the scalp for a minimum of 4 hours, though a full overnight incubation is optimal. During this deeply rested state, the body's parasympathetic nervous system engages, maximizing cellular repair and absorption. However, the morning removal process requires a specific technique to ensure the scalp is reset without stripping the newly restored lipid barrier. This introduces the double cleanse emulsification method. Water alone cannot effectively remove a wax ester, and violently scrubbing the scalp with harsh chemical shampoos will destroy the new cellular growth. Before water touches the head, a high-quality, sulfate-free cleanser must be applied directly to the dry, oiled scalp. This allows the surfactants in the cleanser to bind directly with the jojoba matrix. Once bound, lukewarm water is introduced to create a gentle lather, lifting the compounds away from the scalp without harsh abrasion. The scalp is thoroughly rinsed, followed by a second, lighter cleanse to ensure the follicular openings are completely clear and ready for the next evening's application. Those undertaking this precise biological intervention must be prepared for the telogen purge phenomenon. Between day 5 and day 14 of the protocol, a sudden and sometimes alarming increase in hair shedding will occur. This is not a failure of the matrix. It is the definitive proof of biological activation. This is not a failure of the matrix. It is the definitive proof of biological activation. The dormant, suffocating follicles are finally receiving the signal to restart the anagen growth phase. To push a new, thick terminal hair through the scalp, the follicle must aggressively eject the weak, dead, miniaturized hair that was trapped in the pore. This shedding is the eviction of the old biological structure. Stopping the protocol during this phase is the single greatest error a subject can make. Abandoning the matrix during the purge leaves the newly awakened follicle without the quercetin required to block the returning DHT, dooming the new hair before it even breaks the surface. Consistency through the telogen purge is mandatory. Beyond the strict evening application, optimizing the scalp environment is necessary to accelerate the 86.9% regrowth metric. A significant, yet entirely ignored factor in hair loss after 50 is follicular calcification. Years of showering in standard municipal water deposits heavy layers of calcium, magnesium, and dissolved minerals directly onto the scalp. These microscopic minerals embed themselves into the stratum corneum, creating a hard, impenetrable crust over the follicular openings. Even the jojoba delivery system will struggle against a heavily calcified scalp. To destroy this mineral barrier, a chemical descaling must occur once every 14 days. This is achieved using the organic acids found in pure, unpasteurized apple cider vinegar. The acetic acid acts as a chelating agent, binding to the heavy metals and calcium deposits and dissolving them on contact. The preparation requires exactly 1 part raw apple cider vinegar, diluted into 4 parts distilled water. After the morning double cleanse, this acidic solution is poured directly over the scalp and allowed to sit for no more than 3 minutes. The scalp will experience a mild tingling sensation as the acid breaks down the mineral plaque and resets the acid mantle of the skin to its optimal pH of 4.5. The solution is then rinsed away with cold water to seal the cuticles. This biweekly descaling ensures the scalp is pristine, allowing the jojoba and quercetin matrix completely unobstructed access to the dermal papilla. Furthermore, the internal biological environment must support the external intervention. While the jojoba and onion matrix shuts down local 5-alpha reductus at the follicular level, systemic inflammation will still restrict blood flow. The microcirculation required to feed the awakened dermal papilla relies heavily on the elasticity of the capillary walls. High levels of circulating cortisol from stress, combined with diets rich in oxidized seed oils and refined carbohydrates, cause the endothelium, the inner lining of the blood vessels, to stiffen and inflame. To maximize the nutrient delivery to the scalp, systemic inflammation must be brutally suppressed. Integrating highly bioavailable omega-3 fatty acids, specifically eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA, and docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, found in wild-caught fish or high-grade algae extracts, physically lubricates the vascular system from the inside out. When the capillary walls are highly elastic, the vasodilation triggered by the evening scalp massage becomes exponentially more effective, flooding the roots with oxygen and amino acids. The biological timeline for complete restoration is not measured in days, but in cellular cycles. The human hair follicle requires an average of 90 to 120 days to fully transition from the dormant telogen phase back into a robust anagen phase and push a visible terminal hair through the epidermis. The 86.9% regrowth rate documented in clinical settings was achieved through relentless, unbroken consistency. Missing applications, using oxidized ingredients, or falling victim to the panic of the telogen purge will reset the biological clock and allow DHT to immediately reclaim the follicle. The industry suppression of this mechanism is highly calculated. A lifelong dependency on synthetic vasodilators and proprietary chemical compounds ensures a continuous revenue stream. A naturally occurring biomimetic wax ester combined with a ubiquitous dietary flavonoid cannot be patented. It cannot be bottled and sold for hundreds of dollars because the active compounds degrade outside of immediate, fresh compounding. By utilizing the molecular superiority of jojoba to bypass the dermal barrier and weaponizing the massive quercetin concentrations of raw allium cepa to destroy the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, the biological kill switch is forcefully deactivated. The fibrosis dissolves, the miniaturization reverses, the vascular system re-engages. The follicles do not die at 50, they simply require the exact biochemical intervention to survive. The science is absolute, the mechanism is proven, and the protocol is now fully available to be executed. The reversal of thinning hair begins with the destruction of DHT at the source. Execute the extraction, maintain the daily application, weather the biological purge, and reclaim the structural integrity of the hair.